The cargo ship Star Chaser floated silently through deep space. Inside, Evan Carter, experienced human engineer, stood in the engine bay, staring at the fuel gauge. The numbers were falling. Not fast enough to cause an explosion, but fast enough to be dangerous. Every hour, the ship was losing fuel. He had no idea why. He had checked the pipelines twice. No cracks, no loose joints, no strange smells. Even the automated scanners reported no leak detected. And yet the gauge kept dropping bit by bit, like something was slowly drinking the ship dry. Evan wiped the sweat from his forehead. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered to himself. The ASCOM voice spoke from the ceiling. "Chief. Engineer Carter, fuel loss is calculated at 0.7% per hour. No physical breach detected." "Yeah, you said that an hour ago," Evan replied, frustrated. "Fuel doesn't just vanish into thin air. Not out here." The Star Chaser was in a lonely part of space. No planets, no stations, no traffic. Just a long stretch of black void with stars scattered like dust. That made the situation worse. If the ship ran out of fuel, they would be stranded. No one would come to help. He ran another scan: thermal imaging, sound detection, magnetic mapping. Nothing. Everything looked normal. But something wasn't normal. Evan could feel it in his gut. Years of space travel had taught him one thing: if something didn't make sense, it usually meant something was hiding. By the third hour, his patience was gone. He locked down the engine room and sealed the cargo bay. He even crawled into the narrow maintenance shafts, shining his flashlight into every corner. Dust, cables, metal panels, nothing. But when he came out, something strange caught his attention. A faint wet sound. Slurp, slurp. Evan froze. He held his breath, listening. The sound was soft, rhythmic, and coming from somewhere near the central fuel line. Slowly, he stepped toward the noise, keeping his flashlight off. The engine bay lights were dim, casting long shadows over the machinery. The sound grew louder. He reached the main fuel pipe, a thick silver tube that carried high-grade plasma fuel from the tanks to the engine core. And then he saw a movement. Something small shifted in the darkness. A shadow no bigger than a child crouched near the pipe, head bent forward. Evan's heart pounded. At first he thought it was a rat or some kind of stowaway animal. But then he noticed the shape of the head slightly elongated, with hair that shimmered faint blue under the emergency lights. He flicked on the flashlight. The beam landed on a face. It was a girl, but not human. Her skin was pale silver, almost metallic, and her eyes glowed bright cyan like two tiny moons. Her mouth was pressed against a small connector on the fuel line, and he saw clear as day-thick blue liquid moving through a transparent tube into her mouth. She was drinking the ship's fuel. Evan's first thought was, this is impossible. That fuel was toxic. One sip could kill a human instantly. Even most aliens couldn't touch it. But here she was, swallowing it like it was water. She froze when she saw him, her glowing eyes wide. "Hey," Evan stepped forward. In a flash, she leapt backwards so fast, it was like watching a shadow flicker. She slipped into a maintenance duct, disappearing from sight before he could react. "AI," Evan shouted. "Track her." "Lifeform in the ducts." The AI's voice was calm, almost confused. "Negative. No life signs detected in this sector." "It's not possible," he said through clenched teeth. "I saw her." Evan ran to the duct, shining his flashlight inside. Nothing, just cables and dark metal. No footprints. No sign she had been there at all. He stood there for a long moment, breathing hard. Was he imagining things? No, he knew what he saw. That girl had been drinking the ship's fuel, and she had been alive. But how did she get on board? Why was she here? And most important, how was she not dead? Evan didn't have the answers, but he knew one thing for certain: this was no ordinary leak. Somewhere in the dark corners of his ship, an alien girl was hiding. And for some reason, she needed his fuel to survive. That night, Evan didn't sleep. He sat in the control chair, watching the fuel gauge drop Every hour, the same quiet theft continued, small amounts disappearing. It's never enough to trigger a critical alarm, but enough to eventually kill the ship. He leaned back and muttered to himself, "All right, whoever you are. Tomorrow, I'm catching you." Outside the ship, the stars drifted silently by. Inside, in the metal veins of the star chaser, something moved, and it was watching him too. Evan barely touched his breakfast ration the next morning. His mind was still replaying the same image over and over, the silver-skinned girl crouched at the fuel pipe, her glowing cyan eyes locking with his before she vanished into the vents. Every logical thought told him it was impossible. The fuel wasn't just toxic. It was death in liquid form. It could burn through human lungs in seconds, melt through alien stomachs in minutes. And yet, she had swallowed it like sweet nectar. He powered up the Star Chaser's internal scanners again, setting them to full sensitivity. "AI," he said sharply. "Expand lifeform search parameters. Include non-standard biology, radiation-based, silicon-based, anything that could hide from standard scans." The AI hesitated, then replied, "Search expanded. No lifeforms detected." Evan swore under his breath. She was here. He could feel it. But whatever she was, she could hide from his ship's sensors like a ghost. That meant one thing: she wasn't just an accident. She was skilled. Evan decided to play a different game. Instead of chasing her, he would make her come to him. He spent the next 2 hours moving through the ship's underbelly, deliberately leaving subtle breadcrumbs. A loose panel here, a slightly open fuel access hatch there. Not obvious enough to feel like bait, but enough that if she was watching, she might get curious. He also carried a portable scanner, one tuned to detect faint energy signatures, the kind you'd find in living organisms that fed on fuel. By the third hour, he got a hit, a faint, irregular pulse. Moving slowly through the ventilation shafts, Evan's heart began to pound. He followed it, step by careful step, till he reached one of the service junctions. He crouched, listening, and there it was again, slurp, slurp, but softer this time, almost cautious, like she knew he was near. He turned his head just enough to see into the corner. There she was, the same alien girl, kneeling, her hands pressed against the fuel pipe, her mouth near the intake port. But this time, he saw something different. Skin wasn't just silver, it was shifting, tiny ripples moving under the surface like liquid. Metal. And her eyes weren't just glowing, they were reflecting the faint blue of the fuel itself. It wasn't just that she could drink the fuel, it was becoming part of her. Evan stepped forward slowly, his voice calm. "I'm not going to hurt you." Her head snapped up. For a moment she didn't run, she just stared at him, unblinking. Then she spoke soft, rapid words in a language his AI didn't recognize. The translation module beeped in confusion. "Unknown syntax, cannot translate." Evan raised his hands, palms open. "Do you understand me?" Her gaze flicked to his hands, then to his face. And for the briefest moment, her lips curved into something almost like a smile. Then she was gone, slipping into the ducts faster than his eyes could track. Evan slammed his fist lightly against the wall in frustration. Wasn't imagining that there was something in her expression, not just survival. Something else. And then he saw it, near the pipe where she had been crouching. A faint smear of fuel shimmered against the metal. But it wasn't just a spill, it was shaped, deliberate. 3 curved lines, 2 dots. It looked like a symbol. Evan's breath caught. "AI, record this marking. Try to match it to any known alien language or code. Processing. No match found." Figures. He ran a finger over the mark, and for a moment, the faintest warmth tingled against his skin. Not from the fuel, this was something else. Suddenly, the fuel gauge on the console beeped. Another small drop, a leak. No, the feeding. It was still happening. Evan leaned against the wall, thinking. She wasn't dying from the fuel because it wasn't poison to her, it was nourishment. And if she needed it that badly, what was she running from? He had a gut feeling, whatever had driven her here, to drink dangerous human fuel in secret. It wasn't over. Somewhere in the darkness of the ducts, she was watching him. And somewhere out there in space, something else might be watching her. By the next cycle, Evan had made up his mind. No more waiting, no more guessing. If the girl wanted his fuel, she would have to come out of hiding, and when she did, he'd be ready. He started early, moving quietly through the Star Chaser. This time, he avoided loud tools and bright lights. He wanted the ship to feel empty, quiet, safe. A place where the intruder could let her guard down, but hidden in the shadows, he set his trap. Not the kind with bars and cages. This one was smarter. A small container of high-grade fuel placed in a narrow maintenance corridor. Motion trigger sensor linked to his wrist display.
Above it.
A micro-drone camera silent. Nearly invisible, Evan crouched in the darkness 3 corridors away. Eyes locked on the live feed. For almost 2 hours, nothing happened. The ship hummed softly, the low thrum of the engines filling the silence, then dash movement. A faint flicker at the edge of the camera's view. Something slid from the vent grill, landing silently on the metal floor. It was her. The alien girl moved. Like water silent, fluid, every step deliberate. Her glowing cyan eyes scanned the hallway before she knelt beside the container. Evan's pulse quickened. She reached out but didn't touch the fuel immediately. Instead, she closed her eyes, and her hands hovered just above it. The drone's thermal feed picked it up. Her palms were radiating heat. Not random heat, but pulsing, almost in sync with her heartbeat. And then the impossible happened. The liquid inside the container began to swirl, as if responding to her presence. It was like the fuel knew her. Evan stepped out from his hiding. Place. Got you. Her eyes snapped open. For a heartbeat, she didn't move. Her gaze locked on his, and Evan saw something strange. Not fear, not anger. Something like recognition. Then she bolted. Evan sprinted after her. She darted into the ventilation shaft, her silver skin glinting in the dim light. The ducts echoed with the sound of her bare feet against metal. Evan climbed in after her, crawling fast, the metal warm under his palms. The air smelled faintly. Of ozone and fuel? Ahead, her shadow flickered, sometimes close, sometimes far. Like she was bending the distance itself. A sudden clang echoed through the ducts. Evan stopped, breathing hard. The sound had come from above she had climbed into. An access shaft leading toward the upper maintenance ring. He followed, but when he emerged, the space was empty. Only the soft hum of the ship remained. Then he noticed something on the wall. Another symbol. This one was larger, drawn with a smear of shimmering blue fuel, shaped like a crescent moon pierced by a straight line. Evan's wrist display beeped. Unknown vessel approaching. Estimated arrival, 22 minutes. He stared at the symbol, his mind racing. Was this a warning? A message or a threat? Somewhere deep in the ship, in the network of ducts and shadows, the alien girl was still watching. Him, and now. Someone else was coming. Evan didn't move for a long moment. His eyes stayed on the strange blue mark smeared across the wall, a crescent moon pierced by a straight line. The fuel shimmered faintly. Even in the dim maintenance lights. It wasn't random. It wasn't art. It was a message, AI, he said quietly. Record and analyze this symbol. Cross-check with every alien database we have. A few seconds passed. Search complete, the AI replied. No match found in known galactic archives. Evan frowned. No match meant 2 things. Either it belonged to an undiscovered species, or it belonged to a species so dangerous that its records were erased. He leaned closer to the wall. The fuel smear still radiated faint heat. It was fresh. That meant she was close watching him, maybe even waiting for his reaction. Evan touched the mark with his gloved fingers. A strange tingle ran up his arm like a faint electric pulse. Enough to hurt, but enough to feel alive. The fuel wasn't just fuel anymore. Somehow she had changed it before he could think further. The AI's voice cut in. Warning. Unidentified vessel approaching at high velocity. Estimated contact in 17 minutes. Evan froze. Type. Unregistered. No transponder. Energy signature. Unstable. That was bad. Unstable energy meant a military-grade engine, fast, aggressive, and usually hostile. His mind connected the dots. The girl. the symbols, the fuel. And now, an incoming ship. She wasn't just stealing fuel to survive. She was leaving a warning, but warning about what? He moved quickly, grabbing a portable scanner and heading toward the engine room. If she was still on board, she'd be near the fuel lines again. Was the only place she seemed to feel safe. The corridors were empty. The ship eerily quiet except for the hum of the drives. Then he saw it, another mark. It's one on the floor. Near the main fuel tank, 2 dots surrounded by jagged lines. AI, magnify, and analyze. The system scanned it for several seconds. Symbol detected in 2 other locations on ship hull exterior. Possible meaning, they are coming. Evan's stomach tightened. He looked at the countdown, 15 minutes until the strange vessel arrived. Why would she warn me? He muttered to himself. If she was some kind of thief, she could have stayed hidden and let him be destroyed. But she didn't. That meant whoever was coming. They weren't after him. They were after her. A faint metallic sound echoed from above a vent cover, shifting. Evan spun around, but only caught a glimpse of movement. She was still here, still watching. And now he was sure of one thing. If he didn't understand her, message before that ship arrived. It might be the last thing he ever saw. The countdown on Evan's wrist display ticked down 12 minutes until contact. That was all the time he had to find her, figure out what she wanted before the strangers outside arrived. A faint clang echoed through the narrow corridor. He turned his head just in time to see a vent cover swinging shut. She's in the ducts again, he muttered, grabbing his toolkit and crawling toward the nearest access hatch. The moment he lifted it, faint smell of ozone and fuel hit his nose. She'd been here recently. Inside, the ducts were hot and cramped. The sound of the engines was louder in here, constant metallic roar in the background. Somewhere ahead, a faint scraping noise echoed. Evan moved fast, knees and palms pressing against warm metal as he crawled. The duct bent left, then right, forcing him to twist his body to keep up. Every few seconds, he caught a flicker of movement, a shadow vanishing around a corner, the shimmer of silver skin in the dim light. Stop. No, he called, his voice echoing. In the tight space, I'm not your enemy. For a moment, the sound ahead paused and continued faster this time. He gritted his teeth. Fine, if she wouldn't stop. He'd have to corner her. They reached a cross-section of the ducts. She darted left, but Evan knew that path ended in a maintenance dead end. He crawled hard, heart pounding. And just as she turned to escape, he blocked her path. For the first time, they were face to face in the confined space. Her glowing cyan eyes locked on his, wide and alert. Her breathing was fast, but she didn't look afraid, more like she was calculating her next move. Please, Evan said slowly, pointing to the fuel tank area behind him, then to her. Why? Why fuel? She spoke again in that rapid alien language. This time, Evan's wrist translator beeped partial translation. Fuel is life. They want it all, Evan repeated. The ship outside? She nodded once, sharply. Then she made a motion to hands, pulling something close to her chest, then spreading them wide like an explosion. The translator struggled but managed a fragment. If they take it, everything dies. Before he could ask more, the ship's alarm blared through the ducts, 10 minutes until contact. Deep vibration rolled through the hole as the approaching vessel adjusted speed. She grabbed Evan's wrist suddenly, her grip surprisingly strong, and started pulling him deeper into the ducts. Where are you taking me? He demanded, crawling to keep up. No answer. Only a quick glance back, her eyes urging him to follow. They dropped into a small chamber behind the main fuel core. Here, the air shimmered faintly, almost like heat waves. She knelt, pressing both palms against the giant tank. The blue fuel inside began to glow brighter, and the hum of the ship's engines shifted to a deeper, more powerful tone. Evan watched in shock. She wasn't just drinking the fuel, she was charging it. Somewhere outside, the enemy vessel was closing in. Inside, the girl worked quickly, her hands glowing brighter, her skin shifting like liquid metal. And Evan realized something terrifying. Whatever she was doing, it wasn't just to protect herself. It was to turn his ship into a weapon. The Star Chaser's alarms wailed through the corridors. The AI's voice was calm, but the words made Evan's skin crawl, warning. Unknown vessel has matched velocity, docking in progress. In the engine bay, the alien girl's hands were still pressed to the fuel core. The blue glow inside had intensified, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. The ship's hum was deeper now, sharper like a predator's growl before it strikes. Evan crouched beside her. They're boarding. You need to hide. She shook her head slowly, those cyan eyes locking on his. Her voice was low, almost like a growl. The translator stuttered, then produced fragments. Hide means death, fight. The sound of docking clamps locking onto the hull echoed like thunder. Metal groaned as the enemy ship forced its connection. The vibration rattled tools off shelves, and the lights flickered. Evan grabbed a plasma cutter from the wall. I hope you're better at fighting than you are at explaining. The boarding hatch blew open with a hiss, and shadows poured in tall. Armored figures with insect-like masks and triple-jointed legs. Their weapons were long, black rifles that hummed with lethal energy. Evan ducked behind a console as the first blast scorched the wall above his head. The smell of burned metal filled the air. Then something unexpected happened. The girl stood up. Her hands left the fuel core, but the glow didn't fade, it followed her. Trailing through her skin like rivers of light, one of the boarders aimed at her and fired. The shot never reached her. A wall of shimmering blue energy erupted in front of her body, the blast scattering into harmless sparks. Evan stared, stunned. She didn't just drink the fuel. She became the fuel. With a sharp, almost musical cry, she thrust her palm forward. A lance of blue plasma shot from her hand, slamming into the nearest boarder and sending him crashing into the wall. The others hesitated. Big mistake. She moved like lightning, her body a blur of silver and blue, striking with bursts of pure energy. Every hit left scorch marks glowing on the metal floor. Evan, adrenaline surging, joined the fight, using the plasma cutter to slash at any boarder that got close. But it was clear she was the storm. He was just holding on inside it. One of the enemy soldiers shouted something into a comm unit. The translator caught a single word, Seeker. Evan didn't know what that meant, but the way they looked at her like she was the prize, not the threat, made his stomach twist. The AI's voice broke through the chaos. Warning, enemy reinforcements inbound. Estimate 3 minutes. The girl looked at Evan, her expression sharp, urgent. She pointed at the fuel core, then at the docking hatch. The translator only caught fragments, overload. Then escape. Evan's grip on the plasma cutter tightened. If she was suggesting what he thought she was, this fight was about to get a whole lot louder. The engine bay trembled under the weight of enemy footsteps. The metallic thud of armored boots echoed closer. Reinforcements were here. The AI's calm voice spoke through the chaos. Multiple hostile signatures detected. Internal breach. Imminent. Evan's eyes met hers. The alien girl stood by the fuel core, blue light running under her skin like living lightning. Her expression was calm, but her eyes burned with a fierce determination. You overload the core, we both die, Evan warned. She stepped closer, placing her small silver hand on his chest. The translator finally gave a clear sentence. Not die. Ignite.
Before
he could answer, the hatch burst open. 5 more boarders poured in, weapons up. Their leader pointed at her and barked an order in their insect-like tongue. The girl didn't flinch. Instead, she turned to the fuel core, pressed both hands to its surface, and sang. It wasn't a human song. It was a strange, resonating hum that vibrated in Evan's bones. The fuel inside began to swirl violently, glowing brighter with each note. The air turned electric, the smell of ozone sharp in his nose. The enemy soldiers opened fire. Every shot bent around her, the blue glow flaring brighter like a shield made of living energy. Evan's instincts screamed at him to run, but his legs wouldn't move. He couldn't look away. The fuel wasn't just reacting to her voice, was answering with a final rising note. She threw her arms wide. A wave of blue plasma erupted outward, flooding the engine bay like a sun exploding. The blast tore through the enemy soldiers, hurling them back into the walls, their armor smoking. The docking clamps on the enemy ship snapped like brittle glass. Evan shielded his eyes against the blinding light. When the glow faded, the engine bay was silent. The enemy ship, visible through the viewport, drifted powerless into the void. Its hull scorched with glowing marks, the same symbols she had drawn on his ship. She turned to him, breathing hard, the light in her skin slowly dimming. The translator spoke again. "They will come again. But now, you are marked too." Evan swallowed, looking around at the wreckage. Marked? For what? She gave a faint, tired smile. For the fight. Then she did something unexpected. She reached out and pressed her forehead against his. The translator didn't speak this time, but Evan didn't need it. The gesture felt like both a promise and a warning. Outside, the stars seemed unchanged, silent and distant. But Evan knew better now. Somewhere out there in the cold dark, others like her were waiting. And whatever war was coming was now a part of it. The Star Chaser turned. Slowly, engines humming with renewed power. This time, the fuel's glow felt different, alive, almost aware. And beside him, the alien girl sat quietly, her eyes watching the stars, as if she could already see the next battle.